Hey, estate planning attorney Paul Rabelais here, and in this video we're going to talk about just how long a trust can last. Okay, so sometimes people come into my office, they say, Paul, I want to set up a trust and I want it to last forever. So I might hear that from the grandparents or great-grandparents who perhaps upon their death they want some or all of their estate to go into a trust for the benefit of all future generations who need an education. So that's what they're thinking when they come into the office. Or I might have someone who says, Paul, I didn't have any kids, and because they didn't have any kids, they were able to accumulate a lot of wealth because everybody else spends it on their kids. But they say, you know what, Paul, I have some nieces and nephews, and now they have children and grandchildren. I want to set up a trust for all of the educational needs for my nieces and nephews and all of their descendants down the road. So that's when we have to start talking about really how long this trust can last. Now, I'll tell you, most trusts aren't designed to last an extremely long time. So you've got the kind of joint married couple avoid probate revocable living trust. That's designed to last typically until just after both those settlors pass away, when the trustee then is instructed to terminate the trust by distributing the trust assets to the trust beneficiaries, which often are the children of the people who set up the trust. So that trust will last shortly after the people who set it up pass away. Then you've got, trust for minors. Sometimes, parents with minor children will write wills that say if we happen to pass away while our children are still young, our estate goes into a trust for them. It can be used for their educational needs and perhaps for other needs. And then if there's anything left when they're 25, they can have it. So that's how long that trust lasts. But then you get some special needs trusts where parents who have special needs children, parents who have children who are getting certain government benefits because of a special need that the child has, those parents or grandparents will set up a trust either during the parents' or grandparents' lifetime, or a trust will take effect when the parents or grandparents die. And so assets at that time go into that special needs trust, and the special needs trust typically does last for the lifetime of the special needs child or the special needs beneficiary. So that one's likely to go on for many years. So the question, how long can a trust last? And it's a tough question because there's so many different kinds of trusts out there, and your particular state law, of course, will apply. So, but I want to address the issue that, it does get addressed when someone wants a trust to last forever. And I'm going to go over the kind of typical trust where both the settlor or settlors, that's the people setting up the trust, and the beneficiaries, that's the people benefiting from the trust. We're going to talk about the scenario where they're all natural persons, which is typical. It's not entities either, setting up the trust or as a beneficiary of a trust. Let me give an example. Let's say you've got some great-grandparents out there and they want to create a trust for the benefit of as many of their descendants as they can. Obviously, if they're great-grandparents, they have children, they have grandchildren, they have great-grandchildren. Heck, they may even have some great-great-grandchildren, or however many greats we're getting to. But let's say, the people who want to set up the trust, maybe it's one person, maybe it's a couple together. Let's say they're 80 years old, and let's say they have a kind of a slew of great-grandchildren. And let's say the youngest of that lot of great-grandchildren is 5 years old. Now, I will tell you that what often limits the term of these trusts that you set up is a special rule that states that a beneficiary of a trust must be in being and ascertainable on the date of the creation of the trust. So that rule factors into how long a trust can last if a beneficiary must exist at the time that the trust is created. Let's go back to the 80-year-old great-grandparents. They've set things up so that when they die, either all or part of their estate goes to a trust for their great-grandchildren. How long can that trust will last? Well, under this scenario, this trust can last until the death of the last surviving income beneficiary or the expiration of 20 years after the death of the settlor last to die, whichever last occurs. So what does that mean? That means if you have people who are 80 when they set up the trust, or when they die, that's when the assets go into the trust. The trust can last up to either 20 years from their death, which isn't very, very long, or until the, got it mixed up, until the last settlor dies. That's not going to be very long, they're 80, or until 20 years after the death of the last surviving income beneficiary. So if they have a income beneficiary who is 5 years old, this trust that this 80-year-old couple set up can really last until the last surviving great-grandchild, 20 years after the last surviving great-grandchild dies. So 80-year-old great-grandparents set it up. $1 million goes into this trust for the great-great-grandchildren, and the youngest of which is 5 years old. That great-grandchild, who is the last surviving income beneficiary of the trust, lives until they're 90. So they live for 85 years, and then the trust must terminate 20 years after that last surviving income beneficiary dies. So in theory, a trust could last for 100 years because it lasted until the 5-year-old, lasted until 20 years after the 5-year-old died. 5-year-old lived to 90, lasts another 20 years, that's 105 years. I will state that if there's no term stated in the trust, which is kind of rare, then the trust lasts until the death of the last income beneficiary. So this really applies if you want to have a trust last for a very long time. You just have to be aware that there are limitations. These things just can't be perpetual. And so you have to, understand what the rules are so that you can set things up, appropriately, because sometimes these things do last for many, many decades. Okay, hopes that helps with your how long can a trust last. We'll see you next time. Make sure you smash the like button, hit the notification bell, all the good stuff, the subscribe button, and YouTube will keep you posted of my future videos. You won't miss anything. See you later.